Is this recording? I think so. So here is the second video that I'm recording for you, and this is a very different matchup. This is a spikes mirror, spikes offense from the opponent versus a spikes balance from me, and I'm gonna talk about my decisions versus the YouTuber Tetrafolium, because that's who I'm fighting. So here we go. I'll put it onto slow. So lead Salamence versus lead Tyranitar is kind of interesting because so typically I would switch out as Tyranitar here, but sometimes Tyranitar can win. Basically, if it's choice band Salamence, Tyranitar has to leave. If it's mixed Salamence and the Tyranitar is either choice band or has Ice Beam, then you can choose to trade with the mixed Salamence if you like. Typically you don't lead with Dragon Dance Salamence, but I guess you can, and Dragon Dance Salamence loses to any Tyranitar, unless the Dragon Dance Salamence has Break, but that's quite rare. So, predicting that Tetrafolium will switch, I go to Fortress, expecting to catch like a Skarmory coming in on Break, and that is in fact exactly what happens. So off to a good start this turn 1. I'm going to get a layer up and Skarmory won't even be able to get one. Thief comes down, critical hit. I'm happy to take that. I'll just take my layer. And this... Oh, yeah, so preempting that the Skarmory would click Spikes, I click Rapid Spin rather than going for a second layer. This team doesn't have a Gengar. If it did have a Gengar or some way of spin blocking, I'd probably be more greedy about getting a second layer really early, but I'm happy to play this a little bit more slowly, so I don't do that. I just go for the spin to deny Skarmory's layer. Mopsh comes in, thuds into a Blissey, and without even a spike down, that Will-O-Wisp is super unimpactful, and so I make a double here, because this Moltres there's no way it's staying in. Tyranitar comes in to pressure the Blissey out. I am not staying in for any of that, and I go to my own Tyranitar, hoping to mid-ground, like Metagross coming in, maybe catch Skarmory coming in, we get the enemy Tyranitar. This is a bit of a personality test. Notably, the enemy Tyranitar does reveal leftovers. So what I'm thinking is, I was hoping to catch like a Gengar or something, but yeah, because then I could lure the Wisp in a second time and come in with Umbreon and get a trap. But no Gengar revealed so far, just a T-Tar. And I decide to stay in and just EQ this thing. It probably can't live it. And it finds an offensive Swampert. Hit right. Ooh, Skarmory's out of here. I EQ again because, you know, take your kill. There's a spike down and your Swampert's already at 46 by turn 7. They might sack it, to be honest. That doesn't happen. They go Skarm. Try to establish a layer. So obviously I go straight back to Forry. And the Skarmory's just trying to chip me down. And this line of play is indicative of no spin blocker, because they're trying to just kill the Fortress and stop it from spinning. So I'm at this point going to start layering up and spinning, and just taking this health to get my 3 layers, because based on what's been revealed, a Moltres and a CBtar and an aggro Swampert, the aggressive Swampert makes me think that this team doesn't have spin, so I'm layering. I've got my layers. The good thing about this team is that you can trap the rapid spinners with Umbreon, so that's something to keep in mind with this team. When you're playing, that's in a more slow-paced game, you can like slowly whittle them down. This is an aggro game, so I'm just spiking away. I'm happy to trade this damage on Umbforrey for 3 layers. And this just sort of, I go for a counter here this time because I predicted the layers and then I spun, so I thought they might try and go for a peck to punish my spin. This turn I click counter. They just spike, so they're gonna get another peck. That's fine. And I spin, and this time playing a bit less of a 50-50 game, because that counter was like a hard read. This time I decide to go CBtar because it comes peck, and if they layer, well, at least I don't come in on it. This Umbforrey's basically dead in the water, it's not spinning again. So I decide to basically leave the Umbforrey as a sack for later. Maybe they don't layer. And I go for Rock Slide here because Swampert's so low. I want to force in like a Metagross or something if they have it. On a TSS team like this, a Metagross is less likely, which makes Rock Slide even more free here. And maybe I get a flinch to stop this 3rd layer. Wonderful. Just let the Skunk go, you know, maybe Rock Slide misses, you get 3 layers. Skunk's probably not coming in again. In comes Tyrannosif. We still don't know who this is. We know it's got leftovers, but we have no idea how much health it has. Being locked into Rock Slide, I decide to go Mence. I'm thinking that it's either a Pursuit, or probably something more aggressive, like a physical or maybe a mixed CBtar. Given that they left against my CBtar before, I'm thinking it's probably more likely to be DD. And that is what happens. I go Silence to cover the EQ and then also get the Intim if they do decide to DD. And now this creates an entry point for my Swampert. So in comes Swampert, taking absolutely nothing. And now that Skarmory's dead, I think this is a nice time to go for Toxic, because that's not a Luntar or anything, and it finds a Celebi, which is super nice. And on this kind of team, I'm thinking that this Celebi probably doesn't have any way to set up. I don't think it's SD pass, and I don't think it's Calm-Bind. So I'm happy to just protect stall this and get some Toxic chip down. They go for Leech. And I think, okay, what do I want to bring in here to take this Leech or Giga Drain? Because the Blissey's too important, because the Blissey's going to heal it up too much and it's too important for Molt. There are 2 layers down. I'm a bit scared of a Psychic coming down, which makes the prospect of going Salamence unattractive. Leech isn't great either. You could go Umbforrey because it's so low, but thinking that they might Psychic, I decide to go to Umbreon as a mid-ground. They do actually just Leech. This gives me the option of clicking Protect if I want, but I find a better line. I realise this is probably Leech 3, and they're clicking Giga Drain if they decide to stay in, and if they don't stay in, then I get momentum, because when I go Forry, I'm threatening spin, so whatever comes in has to kill me, and that means I get to like come back in with something that has a good matchup into whatever they bring in. They do just click Giga Drain. This Celebi is now dead if they allow my Forry. Yeah, so they don't allow my Forry to spin. They trade the Celebi for the Forry. Pretty good trade, in my opinion. I'm ahead in the Spikes War, and I just killed an entire Celebi to one Toxic, and I get my Salamence in. In comes Aero, bit of a mind game. I figure that Swampert is too important to risk a double edge, because that DD Tar is still able to Dragon Dance one more time, even with 3 layers. If it comes in and doesn't get the sweep off one more time, then Swampert is more kind of throw awayable. But at this point, I go for a read here. I think they click double edge or HP fly, so I go to T-Tar here. I think the better play is probably to go Umbreon, but I was very confident that they would not click Rock Slide. And now the T-Tar is wreaking havoc. The Swampert's dead. Goodbye, Swampert. Oof. Tar comes in to take the final 3 layers. It can't come in again, NDD, realistically. So, realising this, I decide to just stay in an Earthquake with this, because it'll do about 50, and that makes this so much more manageable. And I really want to minimise the amount of layers that the Swampert has to take. So I decide to just stay in, and I catch a Moltres. And that's the game. They forfeit. So that endgame was pretty scary. I think it really shows how, like, yeah, scary T-Tar Aero can be. But the important thing here is to just like hold on to your Swampert for dear life. Try and bring it in as little as you can. If that Tar had DD'd after my Rock Slide, and it would have done about 50, what I probably would have done is sack the Umbreon, get Swampert in, and just click Surf to finish it off. If I had clicked Rock Slide into that Tar and it had DD'd, or like EQ'd, well, if it EQs, it's dead in the water. If it's EQ, I bring in Salamence and start clicking buttons. If they DD, I preserve my T-Tar, and I go Umbreon on the presumable Rock Slide, because they wouldn't want Salamence to come in. I could have been in trouble if they had DD'd again, but I don't think that they would. I think if they're predicting the Salamence to come in, they would click Rock Slide, because it has a chance to flinch mine, and it's a safer click than DD to make the same predict, basically. So I would bring Umbreon in, and then Swampert. So it's things like that where you just like try and, when there's layers up, and you know, or you're like suspicious that there might be an Aero on like an aggro Spikes team, telltale signs are if Tyranitar Dragon dances early, I know he didn't this game, but things to look out for. If there's a Celebi, like a Leech 3 Celebi on a Spikes team, that's a pretty telltale sign that there's an Aerodactyl. Yeah, I think those are like two ones to look out for, and just how they're playing, if they're like concealing it, you know? Because sometimes they'll bring Aero in, you can force Aero to come into like revenge stuff, and then, you know, you have that info, but if they're being weirdly shifty about what their last is, those are the kinds of things that you can be considering. Yeah, I hope this one was helpful. I was quite tired, so I apologise if the commentary isn't up to par with the previous one. I'm going to stop recording now.